Like, you need to think ahead for that and not just be like, oh, I'll figure it out later. Like, that's the mentality you do not want to have. You don't
Yeah.
want to just be like, I'll wing it. I'll figure it out. That's where I see people under fuel. So that's kind of just like thinking about the context. And of course, depending on what you're doing and where you're at and how long you're gone, like that will determine a lot of the challenges and a lot of what you need to do.
Hey, fans and listeners, it's Lindsey Elizabeth Cortes, registered dietitian, sports dietitian, and your host of the podcast. I'm here today with another fellow registered sports dietitian and host of her own podcast. Our guest today is Claire Shorenstein. She's a distance runner and board-certified sports dietitian with over a decade experience working with teenage and adult athletes from the recreational to elite level. Through her virtual private practice, Eat for Endurance, she helps busy active people. She helps all people. She helps busy, active people learn how to fuel themselves for health and performance while navigating the challenges of everyday life. Claire also hosts the Eat for Endurance podcast, which provides evidence-based guidance, inspiring athlete stories, and practical tips on a wide variety of nutrition topics to fuel better, crush your endurance goals, and thrive as a human being. You can find her on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Eat for Endurance, or at eatforendurance.com. Claire, it's so nice to finally officially connect with you.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Lindsey.
Yeah, so this will be an easy conversation with you as your own podcast host. You're used to speaking, teaching, engaging, all the stuff.
All the
And
things.
all the things nutrition for athletes. Where did your personal passion for nutrition begin?
That's a good question where it began. I'd say probably mostly when I got into running more or, running longer distances myself. So it was in my late 20s. I was living in London at the time. I kind of rediscovered running after a very long break. I ran in high school, cross country, and kind of ran on and off through college, but was more of like in the gym and doing, fitness classes and that kind of stuff. And then when I was in London, I think there was like a corporate 5K or one of those, challenges that one of my colleagues talked me into doing. I hadn't run outside in forever, maybe a treadmill here and there. And that kicked off the whole thing of like, oh, wow, this is actually fun. I forgot I enjoyed running outside and, signed up for 10Ks and half marathons, then marathons, and did pretty much everything wrong on the nutrition front. And so that kind of started my own journey of wanting to figure it out and getting curious and ultimately, thinking about, oh, wow, actually, I want to help people and go back to school and do this, the right way and kind of make a whole career out of it. Because I wouldn't say I had a career at the time. I had a really weird kind of path towards becoming a dietitian. I did mostly arts and music. I was a classical oboist and got my master's degree in that, undergrad in art history. And in my 20s, then I quit because I just wasn't for me anymore. And so I kind of spent most of my 20s just kind of floating around random corporate jobs and figuring out. And so this was kind of I hate to say calling, but it was like the thing that really I kind of felt really passionate about. And so went back to school and basically got a second bachelor's degree, another master's degree. And I kind of started my career a little bit late, but yeah, that's kind of what got me into it.
That's great though. You had one passion and then it kind of went away, and this happens in life. And the fact that you were able to find something else that was like worth pursuing a whole nother degree for is really cool. And I think it's also inspiring to people who don't have things figured out right away in college or their careers. It's like you can try something totally different. And
it's never too late.
It's never too late, no matter your age. And it's also funny, actually, I was just thinking, I was chatting with some of my personal girlfriends the other day. Two of my closest friends I met in grad school where we all of us got our masters in nutrition. And currently I'm the only one who's still practicing nutrition as a dietitian. They both then decided, after some time, they have totally different careers. One does luxury travel and the other one does flower farming and bouquets and weddings. I'm like, let's be flexible in life. We've got lots of different passions and who knows.
Well, it's funny, when I went back to school, so I went to NYU's program and I chose that one in part because it was the easiest to enter into as a career changer and just kind of knock out all your prereqs and then go straight into, doing all the things. But it was a really good mix of people who are straight out of college and then people like me who were kind of dabbling in other things and then eventually figured out what they wanted to do. But it was quite funny going back to school. I think I had just turned 30 when I went back to school. And it was
Yeah.
just such a different experience with everything online and just, it was just like so
Oh,
weird.
yeah.
So it was an interesting experience, but no,
Yeah.
it was the right decision for me.
Yeah. And so that was a degree in nutrition, but this passion started because of running and it was like fueling
Yes.
for running. So then
Yep.
as you and I know, we're both certified specialists in sports dietetics. Like
Yep.
that took an advanced certification and more training
Mhm.
to get that
Mhm.
CSSD. So was it always running for you? That like that nutrition for running and endurance? Like tell us more about that passion there and kind of what
Yes.
maybe some of the mistakes where you were going wrong that you had to then
Mhm. Yeah.
learn how to
Yeah.
fix.
So my interest in nutrition was definitely stemming from a sports nutrition standpoint. So I always knew
Yeah.
ultimately that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to work with athletes. Of course, athletes still being human beings, right? So all the training
Yeah.
that I got, because my master's is in clinical nutrition, and
Right.
I did my internship in a more clinical setting, and I worked in a hospital for a while. Although kind of wish I hadn't done that. That's another story. But I ultimately knew this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to have my own practice. I wanted to do all these things. And it all stemmed from, as you're kind of alluding to, yeah, like just really having no idea. And of course, running was booming in terms of popularity. More and more people were running half marathons and marathons and ultras and all of that. And yeah, there wasn't as much information out there. There certainly weren't as many products out. Like I think I ran my first, was it 2010 was my first marathon. I did it in Paris. And let's just say that they do not have that many porta potties. And I was having to poop between cars on
Gosh.
sidewalk. It was bad. It was just so
No. Oh,
bad.
no.
My parents saw me. They're like, "You look green."
Oh,
It's just like
God.
horrible. I just did all the wrong things. I think I like ate a bunch of like whole wheat pitas the day. I just ate too much fiber. I didn't know what I was. I mean, I really tried hard, and I really tried to like. I thought I knew what was going on. Like in terms of gel intake during, like I was
Yeah.
barely taking carbs. I mean, I probably was lucky if I doubt I was taking more than 20 or 30 grams an hour, if even. Salt
Mm.
wasn't even on my radar. Like just plain water. It was just like a disaster. So
Yeah.
it took me a while to figure out, oh, wow, like nutrition really is the reason why I'm feeling like garbage. And the other piece of this is I come at all of this from an eating disorder and eating history as well. So in high school, I developed an eating disorder. I had a bunch. I was bulimic and anorexic at times. I had, I guess, what you would call like exercise bulimia in my early 20s when I was just overdoing it in the gym. All of these
Yeah.
were I'd say they were almost like subclinical. I was never really fully diagnosed, but it was like very intermittent behavior, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, I was kind of in and out of some therapy and all that, but it was always one of those things where I would go to some sort of like group counseling setting when I was at undergrad at Yale, and like, I would look around me and someone was binging and purging every single day. But I was like, oh, well, I only do it like once a month. So I don't really have a problem. It was like kind of like that was my mindset
Ah.
at the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, I had a problem. So yeah, so I
Well, you know
was,
that now, but just
yes,
like you didn't
yes.
believe it then, and some of our listeners might not, might be because
Yeah,
there's is as you know, as you experienced yourself and now know as a dietitian, like these disordered eating behaviors are rampant, especially that subclinical or that
so
thought of like, well,
normalized.
it's not
Mm-hmm.
that bad, or like, well, somebody else is
Mm-hmm.
worse than me, and
Yes.
it's not okay. It's still not healthy, and you're still
Yeah.
deserving of help, and you're
Mm-hmm.
deserving of just a healthier mind and body relationship with food.
Totally. Totally.
You're
And so
deserving of not binging and purging ever.
ever. Exactly.
Ever.
Exactly. I know. And so
Yeah.
that kind of behavior, it started in high school, maybe when I was like 16, I want to say. And then it was kind of this on and off thing, like maybe for a year I was fine. And then it would kind of pop up. I remember my sophomore year in college, I was really depressed. I have kind of some on and off depression, anxiety, and stuff. So that really came up for me then. And, it was an issue of control. I'm very like, a perfectionist, type A personality,
Mhm.
really would study hard. And it was just another thing I could control and other things I felt like I couldn't control. So
Yeah.
I kind of was coming out of that in my 20s, having stopped playing the oboe, which was literally my life for most of my life, right? Doing
Yeah.
music, and kind of lost that sense of identity. And so the things that I was clinging to, it was controlling food, controlling exercise, all of that, which is also really hard when you love food, because I remember living in New York City I was 22 years old, working some job I hated. I was working in a law firm because I didn't know what else to do with myself, but I wanted to pay the bills and be independent. like out partying and doing all the things. And I loved going to restaurants in New York City. Like I would save up and go to these amazing restaurants with friends. And I wasn't purging at the time, but this was kind of when I was entering more into this disordered eating time where I would
Yeah.
kind of restrict or I would overexercise and was just so hard on myself. And, you know, it really took me, I mean, it was a whole evolution. Like I was really miserable in New York City, ultimately working this job. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I turned 25. I
Yeah.
decided like, screw it. I'm quitting my job. I had saved up some money. I'm going traveling. And so, because I really wanted to do something that really freaked me out, where
Yeah.
it would force me to not be able to plan very much, to be spontaneous, to not have control. Like the whole point was to like put myself in a really uncomfortable situation. And also I love travel and I think I like had dated some guy who was talking about Carnival in Brazil and I was like, oh, that sounds amazing. So that was like the seed. And I was like, I'm going to plan a trip in South America. I'm going to travel by myself. I'm going to backpack. I'm going to have a loose plan, but really, I don't know where I'm going to stay each night. I'm just going to figure it out. I'm going to
Yeah.
learn Spanish. I'm going to like learn Portuguese and I'm just going to go. And so
Yeah.
there was a lot of planning, obviously, that went into it. My
Oh,
parents
I
were not
can
happy that I was
imagine.
going.
I can imagine. But if
But
I put
once,
myself in your shoes as a
yeah.
25-year-old, how exciting.
Yeah, it
Like,
was
how
my quarter life
thrilling.
crisis trip. That's what I called it.
Yes.
Literally, I turned 25 and left like within a few days. And I just
Yeah.
remember feeling so dramatic about it because I remember like saying goodbye to my parents in the airport and just thinking I may never see them again. I'm like, as if I was going to die or something, you know, because
Yeah.
at the time, you know, this was what, 2006, okay?
Yeah.
2006. At the time, South America just wasn't, it wasn't as like more Americans were starting to go down there, but it just wasn't like I would go to some places like because I started in Ecuador and I went to Bolivia and Peru and all around. I stayed in Argentina and Brazil and some other countries, but like certain places had Americans, but a lot of places I would not meet a single American. So I think in my mind it was like this really freaky thing. But what was really nice is I kind of just forced myself. I was like, I'm gonna explore. I'm going to like eat whatever food is around. And it was hard, I'm not gonna lie. Like I was
Yeah.
stressed out. I gained a ton of weight, which my body needed. A little bit over probably what was a comfortable weight for me or a health. Well, I don't want to say the word healthy weight, but it was a much heavier weight. But
Yeah.
and so that was really hard, but it also forced me to just be like, "Oh, well,
Yeah.
you know what?
Yeah.
Screw it. I don't care." I wasn't
Because you
exercising, like,
can't
I was just
you're
doing
not
yeah.
in a place where you can control the food. You have
No,
to, yeah, stop
I
these
was
you
living with an
can't control
Ecuadorian
everything that's in
family for a month. They served me what they served me, you know? I
right.
was roaming around some whatever random town. It's like I was just gonna eat whatever food is there. I mean, I did
Yeah.
get sick a lot because sometimes I would be eating, like, street cart stuff or, you
Yeah.
know, like,
And even just
I got a
different gut
lot of GI stuff.
microbiome. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I just remember being, like, curled up in a ball on Thanksgiving in,
Oh,
like, some
no.
random, like, hostel in Bolivia and just,
Oh,
like, crying
no.
on the phone.
And I'm sure she
Um,
was like, "Come home. What are you
yeah.
doing?"
She's like, "Take Cipro." Or I think I accidentally, like, opened my mouth in the shower. I don't know what happened. It was
Oh my
just yeah.
goodness. Yeah.
Anyways, it was a big adventure. It definitely wasn't easy, but that kind of, like, sent me on this path where that was a really interesting turning point. That's what led me ultimately to move to London because I met, you know, fell in love with a British guy and I was like, "Well, nothing el I don't have ties anywhere else. May as well move to London." And so that's how I ended up there. And I think during that time then in my, like, mid to late 20s, I still was very much trying to shrink myself, trying, you know, there was definitely some disordered eating behaviors, got into running, not to lose weight, but it was, like, almost a different identity, you know, because I kinda
Yeah.
lost the sense of self after music, and so I was like, "Ooh, now I'm a runner." Instead of Claire the Obus, I'm Claire the runner. And
Mhm.
and then ultimately, like, moved into nutrition and then I think I only really dealt with a lot of my disordered eating stuff as I was becoming a dietitian, to be perfectly honest. And then really when I
Yeah.
became a mom, that was like the nail in the coffin. That was like,
Mhm.
that's it. Like I really did a lot of work on myself. And
Mhm.
when I became a mom, 8.5 years ago, that's kind of when I was really able to kind of, I don't want to say figure it out, but I made a lot of progress on my own self
Yeah,
work.
because priorities shift. And so thank you for
Hmm.
sharing your story. It was fun to hear. And I'm sure we could chat for a long
Yeah, I
time
know.
about that as girlfriends. But it's, I think for people who are struggling with disordered eating behaviors, what you just
Hmm.
expressed is like sometimes these life changes, like, go, like taking on a big adventure helped move you away from some disordered eating behaviors because it
Mhm.
forced you into a different lifestyle that, like, you can't do that anymore. And then, okay, now I moved to London, I picked up a different hobby. I'm doing something else physically with my body and I'm learning, oh, wait, how I'm eating doesn't support this running. I need to change that. And then becoming a mom as well. It's that, wait, that that flexibility in life and that this isn't all about me anymore. And I
Yep.
actually had a great call with one of my clients who's struggling, and this is more of a clinical eating disorder, even though, there's a whole sub level that you and I are chatting about. But my client right now really does have an eating disorder. And she had such a fun weekend with her family. And she had this like huge revelation of like, wait, I didn't think about food and my weight and my body as much because I was so focused on my family and other people.
Mhm.
And it's so profound when you really stop to think about that of, how like becoming a mom for you in the story of like now your focus is on other people. And I hope this doesn't come off the wrong way. I don't mean to say that, people who are struggling are like selfish or anything like that because that's not true, but that's the disorder. That's the disordered piece of it. Is
Mhm.
it's creating that really self-absorbed situation when you could be using your heart, mind, and soul to focus on other people, other things. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Did
well,
I make that
yeah.
clear without
Yeah, yeah,
offending?
yeah, and
Okay.
and the part about being a mom too, I think it was for me personally, it was like getting pregnant and just the whole process of creating a human
Mhm.
being and then, giving birth and just postpartum and all the difficulties there and
Mhm.
postpartum depression, anxiety, which is what I experienced. And I mean, there's a lot you can't control in that process,
Yeah.
And so really kind of coming to terms with that. And I mean, thank goodness for therapy. Therapy is amazing.
Mm.
And yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I think this is all a process. It's not like,
Yeah.
oh, that's it. I'm recovered. Forget about it. Like, of course, I have my own struggles and things that happen, but it's when I kind of like sit back and zoom out and like look at the
Yeah.
entirety of my
And the whole
experience. It's kind
journey.
of
Yeah.
and the whole journey exactly, and yeah, it's really kind of fascinating actually to kind of think about where I've been and how far I've come and all of that. And I see clients who have all kinds of different experiences and you talk about like what your client experienced. Like I've had a client who didn't have an eating disorder, but she was really struggling with food and body. And, we were working together and she kind of was really excited to tell me about how she went out to dinner with friends and she actually could finally concentrate and just enjoy being with friends
Be
and the
present.
conversation, be present and rather than obsessing over her food and what she was eating. And I was like, that's amazing. Like,
Yeah.
how awesome that you get to actually just enjoy being out
Mhm.
with friends and not be stressed out about the food. Like, so
Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot of work that we do, I know with our new clients and everything, and it's not all just like, "How many gels are you gonna take?" or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Although that is also important.
that is also important.
Because
Yes.
you don't wanna be
Yes.
having to go to the bathroom in between
No,
parked cars during a
no.
marathon, so
Exactly, which is largely what I discovered, and it was really fun just kind of, exploring that and testing things out in myself. And I eventually moved into, once I kind of started learning a lot more about sports nutrition, I moved into more like the trail and ultra world, which is like a totally different thing. And so that's now where I mostly love to be out on the trails. I don't really do too many like road things these days. I mean, I rode on roads, but like I don't do like road marathons too often.
okay, yeah.
But yeah, and I think honestly for me, again, for me personally, moving into the trail and ultra community where not to say it's not still super competitive and all that stuff, but for what I was doing, it allowed me to relax, not care about my time, just enjoy the scenery,
Mm.
be more present, stress less,
Mhm.
so that's been really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I mean, I think I love road running, but everybody who shifts from road running to trail running kinda says that. It's just but I think that just the racing community of road running gets so focused on, the time and a flat course or something like that versus when you're in the trail, there's more things you can't control with the terrain and the weather and the course and all the distances are all different. And so with the less you can control, the more you can kinda throw your hands in the air and say like, well, it's,
Yeah.
you're not trying to control it as much. And so that can
Yeah.
help if you have that perfectionist type mentality or somebody who can use control in ways that can kind of come back for self-sabotage.
I also kind of
So
felt like I've been there, done that a little bit for road racing because like I wanted to be cute and I did that a few times and I ran Boston a couple times and I was just kind of like feeling burnt out and not like feeling joy with running. And I was like, you know what? I need like more adventure and more scenery and
yeah,
like the crowds are still fun and you get to just like make new friends as like while you run, which is great
yeah.
about trail running because like I'll do like a 50K and I'll run like 18 miles with some random stranger and then we'll be besties.
Right.
It's just, I don't know. It's just a totally different scene, and they're both great. So I'm not trying to like, no
Right.
shade
But this
to
one
road
is
running.
suiting you in your life right
Yes,
now.
it is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. So one topic, first and foremost, I want to say your website is wonderful with all the blogs and free resources you have. So anybody who is a runner or endurance athlete, road, trails, ultras, please go to eatforendurance.com and check out all your free resources and your blogs. And
Thank
one
you.
of your blog articles talked about travel nutrition, and it's interesting because it was specific to sports nutrition, but I kind of wanted to tie this into your 8
Yeah.
months abroad as well. And then and then we talk about traveling for competitions or for
hmm
races. I mean, and that
hmm
happens especially
Yep.
in the distance running world. It's like, well, you might live in California, but you BQ, you're going to travel all the way to Boston
Yep.
just to, run a race. And in the ultra world too, well, these races might be out in the mountains in the wilderness and there's maybe not as many food options around. So I know that that's like 6 different topics right there. But let's just talk about some basics of travel nutrition. If you were to give a presentation on travel nutrition, which actually I believe you're doing very soon. But
Yeah.
if you were like, where would you start with like what are the big tips of like, hey, you're traveling for a race. What do we need to think about before we start traveling? Fans, I'm pausing the conversation again to check in on you. Are you concerned that you have REDS? That's relative energy deficiency in sport. It's a syndrome of not ideal health consequences and performance consequences that all stem from the idea that you're not fueling optimally or fueling enough for your sport needs. I've become an expert in this over the years because unfortunately, a lot of female athletes struggle with this. We have research that shows sometimes up to 90% of female athletes might be suffering from at least one of the side effects of REDS. Other research says that up to 45% of female athletes are struggling with disordered eating. These are big statistical numbers, and I don't like it. I'm here to help you become fierce, fit, and fueled. So first and foremost, head to lindseycortes.com/REDS to learn more about REDS, listen to past podcast episodes, and take our free REDS quiz to see if this might be a concern for you. From there, I've got 3 ways to help you. 1, download the REDS Recovery Guide and start taking action right away. 2, join our REDS Recovery membership. For a very affordable $15 a month, you will have access to me as a sports dietitian to educate and empower you to fuel better. We meet once a week for live calls, Q&A. You have access to the recordings if you can't join live, and a community group chat to support, encourage, and motivate you along the way to fuel fiercely. Last, spots are limited for one-on-one help, but I can help you personally through one-on-one coaching, be it my Fast Track program, the Female Athlete System of Transformation, or perhaps Fuel School, depending on your age. All of that is on my website, lindseycortes.com. But because one-on-one spots are limited, I really want to encourage you to join the REDS Recovery membership. We live in a world where it's very easy to just pop online, read an article, listen to a podcast, and I think we do a decent job at getting information out there, but we all need someone to talk to and really ask those personal questions, and also be open and honest in a community that's going to support you in your fueling needs and goals. And that's exactly what this membership is. So only $15 a month. We meet once a week, and you will be provided with so much education and empowerment and support. I know you won't regret joining. Head to lindseycortes.com/REDS, and there you will see the REDS Recovery membership that you can join, and join us this week. It's time for you to be fierce, fit, and fueled.
Yeah. Yeah, I am actually giving a presentation later today on travel nutrition for busy athletes. And actually, it will be available as a masterclass by the time this podcast comes out. So check out my website if you want to watch it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so travel nutrition, I wrote that blog post and I have a freebie that are my 2 most popular pieces of content, like by far. So people are really resonating with that because as you know, you're out and about. And like when I say travel, I really use that word loosely. So I know we're talking about traveling for a race, but I don't know about you, but when I work with my clients, like I see so many struggles with just being on the go, generally speaking. So of course, as
Yes.
an athlete, you have increased energy demands. You're trying to fit in training, you have all these things you're juggling, and then add to it kind of being out and about or commuting or traveling via actual, like, like car or train or plane or whatever, traveling to race,
Mhm.
like routines get thrown out the window. You don't have what you need readily available. Unless you're really on top of it and planning ahead, it's really easy to go longer periods of time without eating or eating inadequately or just not making great choices for what you need. So
Mhm.
it's really important just to kind of like, first of all, just take a step back and think about, okay, what is the context here? So in this particular case, we're talking about traveling for a race. To put a pin in
Mhm.
that for a second, like if the context is, okay, I'm going to go drive to a trailhead or I'm driving somewhere to train and then I have to run errands afterwards, like you have to think ahead and be like, okay, cool. So I need to bring like a really great meal or snack or pack something or buy something or whatever. Like you need to think ahead for that and not just be like, oh, I'll figure it out later. Like that's the mentality you do not want to have. You don't
Yeah.
want to just be like, I'll wing it. I'll figure it out. That's where I see people under fuel. So, so that's kind of just like thinking about the context. And of course, depending on what you're doing and where you're at and how long you're gone, like that will determine a lot of the challenges and a lot of what you need to do. So for a race specifically, let's say you're traveling for a marathon or trail race or whatever, if it's an endurance event, then hopefully you're carb loading, right? And
Yeah.
usually when you're traveling, you are traveling during that window during like which you should be carb loading. So a carb load is typically anywhere from 2 to maybe even 4 days depending on how long you're doing it. And
Mhm.
so you want to make sure that you have what you need with you. So because often we're thinking about, okay, like the fueling plan and my first nutrition for race day and the gear. And of course, all of that you want to have ready to go and packed and planned out and et cetera. But you need to think about the days before. So it starts with that travel day. So making like, just don't assume that you can get what you need like at the airport. It's
Yeah.
some airports are awesome and have tons of stuff. And if you're lucky and happen to have like a lounge access. I'm a mere mortal who never travels business, so I don't know what that's like, but maybe you have some stuff, but still you don't know what's going to be available. You really can't count on things. So if you know, okay, I do well with XYZ foods, bring those with you. Okay? So just
Yeah.
have what you need. That's number 1. Number 2, hydration. Like we want to be on top of our hydration and flying in particular, we can get dehydrated. It's easy. Like if you don't have a bottle with you and you're just relying on
Oh,
the
yeah.
flight attendants to bring by the tiny little cups of things, like it's just not going
Yes.
to cut it. Obviously, if
Yeah.
you have a short flight versus a long flight, that's different. But just like thinking ahead about that stuff, and just like an FYI, like I know with travel with air travel in particular, it can be tricky because there's only so much you can carry, and we have to think about what can get through security. Yeah, so my little tips and tricks, and of course, if you're traveling with kids, this becomes even more of
That's where
like a
my mind
cluster.
was because I was thinking about that. I'm like, I
Mhm.
used to always like bring a water bottle with me on the planes. And the last 2 years traveling, I'm so dehydrated after a day of traveling because I've got too much to carry with the kids already. And like
Yeah.
one time I brought a water bottle and it spilled everywhere. And it's just like, so the last few trips I've traveled with kids, like I'm so dehydrated and I know better, but it's the kids.
Mhm.
They're the
Yeah,
problem.
yeah, yeah, I know. Okay, well, here's what I do. I'm, like, a little bit anal about how I, like, approach travel with the kids because my 5-year-old eats very few things, and there will be almost nothing that I can buy for her, so I really try to pack ahead for her. But anyways, yeah, travel with a water bottle, or if you really don't wanna bring your own water bottle, then buy one after security.
Yeah.
Like, almost every airport has a refillable thing at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, by the way, just note TSA is fine with anything that is completely frozen. You can bring an ice cube. Like if you want to fill a bottle with ice cubes and it is
Mm,
totally frozen, they will take it. If you want to freeze
interesting.
up an applesauce pouch, which is a great carb loading thing, you can do that. Or for kids, I freeze pouches from the kids and then use as an ice pack. If you want to freeze a
Hmm.
drinkable yogurt or a regular yogurt, you can do that. This is another thing I do for my 5-year-old because she likes those little like Paw Patrol, like, I mean, they're like hardly
Yeah.
yogurts,
The
but
Go-Gurt things. Yes,
go,
I've
yeah,
seen
whatever.
them.
So I freeze those and all of that keeps your food cold. So if you do want to bring like food that might spoil, so non-perishable food, all of these things will keep it cold. You also can just bring a cold pack. Everything has to just be 100% frozen or close to, and then they
Yeah.
will accept it. They won't care. I've frozen all kinds of things. I pack sandwiches on frozen bread. So like maybe for a carb load, you love to have like a turkey sandwich on like a big white roll or something like that. You can freeze
Uh-huh.
the bread. It'll keep the meat cold, wrap it in tin foil. Maybe,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe this isn't so much for a race, but I love to bring frozen edamame in the shell and then it just defrosts and you eat it. So there are
Yeah.
all these different things. And of course, you can pack a variety of shelf stable and perishable snacks. This is what I usually do. But so I make sure I have a variety of different things, like some things that are, have some protein and fat and other things that are
Mhm.
more carb rich. And if you're traveling for a race, then you really want to be relying on those simple carbohydrates, obviously. But yeah, so just know like with TSA, it just requires a little bit of planning. And if you really do want to bring certain liquids in or whatever, you just have to freeze them. Like you could freeze a
Wow.
juice, you could freeze whatever. So
Yeah,
that's what I do with the
I've
kids.
never even attempted that, and nor have
Oh,
I
yeah.
ever even thought of it.
Yeah. So like the pouches are great because like also
Yeah.
like if I'm like, we're going to Maui in a couple weeks, and so usually what I'll do is, like, I'll freeze probably, like, 4 pouches because I wanna bring some with me and have them
Yeah.
around, and so I'll just freeze them all, they'll be my cold packs. Once I get to the
Yeah.
condo, like, I'll just throw them back in the freezer, and
Right.
then I'll take 'em to the beach, and then they'll be nice and cold and defrosted by the time she's ready to have it. Yeah, so there's
Yeah.
there's lots of little hacks you can do for that. In
Mm.
terms of so going back to traveling for a race, the thing you also really wanna make sure you're doing is thinking about, okay, are you staying in a hotel or a condo or what Airbnb, whatever, where you have
Mhm.
access to a kitchen or not? So thinking
Mhm.
about, are you gonna be going out to eat? Are you gonna be grocery shopping when you get there? Is there anything if you're driving instead of flying, then you have a lot more flexibility. You can bring a cooler, you can bring
For sure.
things you need.
Yeah.
You can plan, you can research ahead, like if it's a really long drive, because I have clients who might be driving like 8 hours to a race or whatever, research some places to stop ahead of time. Make sure
Yeah.
that you have what you need along the way and then it's open, that you're not just like relying on like gas station,
I know.
station
Yeah.
foods and whatever.
I
So
think
just again, thinking ahead.
that's where I think in my younger years, I actually went wrong
Hmm.
with trying to plan everything myself and, like, pack everything myself, when
Hmm.
sometimes the answer was, like, you need to stop. You need to stop at
Yeah.
a restaurant, which does mean that you like, especially if a race is coming up, research ahead of time
Yeah.
where you're going to stop so that you know they have options for you. But, yeah, I think where I used to go wrong was I tried to pack it all myself, and then it was just
Yes.
never quite enough, or it wasn't what I was hungry
Hmm.
for, or
Hmm.
or it just felt like I was doing too much snacking instead of getting, like, a full meal in, and
Yeah. And some
so,
people
yeah.
hate meal prepping too. So definitely when I'm talking about all this stuff, my message isn't that you must pack every single thing. It's more
Mm-mm.
just like at the bare minimum, bring like some bars or an apple or just some or trail
Mhm.
mix or just something really easy, just so you have something because
Yeah.
maybe your flight's delayed or
Oh
maybe
my god, yeah.
you don't end up liking what they offer or whatever.
Mm.
And yeah, if you want to stop to buy food or if you want to buy food at the terminal, like there's nothing wrong with that. That certainly is the message I'm sending. It's more just that sometimes people don't think about any of this and just like, I'll figure it out later. Again, it's that mentality. And then
Yeah.
they find themselves in trouble or that they end up like eating something that really doesn't make them feel well or they don't like it or it costs
Mhm.
$1 million or
Costs
whatever.
$1,000,000 in the airport,
Oh,
yeah.
the airport is so rough. So yeah, I mean, I just want people to start thinking about these things. And then same with
Mhm.
like the days leading up to the race. Like if you're going out to dinner the night before, like do they have the options you want? Have you made a reservation? Are you making sure you're eating early and not late if it's like an early start race? I mean, it's just making sure you're just thinking about stuff. Do you even know what time you start? Like, because that determines race morning fueling,
Yeah.
so, and if you're in a hotel, do you need to like bring something with you to make sure you have it, like little oatmeal packets or a bagel or whatever, or will they have it there? So
Mhm.
just kind of like looking into this again, not from like an obsessive controlling point of view, but more just, I want to know ahead of time so I don't need to stress about it because like once you're in those days, you have enough going on. It's really
Mhm.
chaotic and busy. You want to be able to sit back and chill. If you're going to like a major race, like a major like road marathon, there's a huge expo, you're wandering around, like again, making sure you have snacks available. You're not just kind of
Yeah.
reaching for random stuff. So
'Cause you can spend
ju-
a lot of time in that expo, and you're
yeah,
getting way
you
more
can.
steps in than you
Yeah,
think you are.
exactly. So those are the types of things I'm usually talking to people about when it comes to like travel for a race. And then of course making sure you have everything you need for a race day. Hopefully by
Yeah.
this point you've dialed in your fueling plan, you know exactly what you're doing, you're not winging
Mhm.
it, and you have what you need on hand.
This is where those cliché sayings are really true, like
Yeah.
failing to plan is planning to fail type of
Yes.
thing, right?
Yes.
And I think, kind of tying this into your personal journey with nutrition and disordered eating behaviors and your control and stuff,
Mhm.
it's like understanding that, maybe being a type A personality and somebody who likes control is part of who you are. Well, there's certain areas and time, there's a right time and place for it. Like
Mhm.
this is a situation where, hey, let's plan out what we're gonna eat at the day we travel, where we're gonna go when we get there, and our schedule of eating on race day. Like that's where this like mindset of like, I want to control, I want to plan is actually really helpful in these
Yeah.
scenarios. But
Yeah.
then like after the race is where I always tell people, I'm like, have a recovery option planned for immediately after.
Totally.
And then like, and
And
then
then just go have
go.
fun.
And then go have fun. Go find like what
Yeah.
restaurant sounds good.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
what are you craving? Like
Yeah.
then like
Totally.
don't I always tell them like plan a quick recovery meal, but like your dinner afterwards, like no, like go with the flow then. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe there's some scenarios just in case, like maybe have a few out because I'm like, well, if you really don't feel good and then you're not thinking clearly, like maybe have a few
Some
places in mind, but
some people, yeah, sometimes what happens is someone will have like a little something and then they'll just just chill for like 5 hours, not do
too
anything and not
long.
drink anything or eat and like, okay, you need to like get something.
Yeah.
Something out.
Yeah, as I
Um,
was vocalizing that, I was like,
yeah.
well, maybe some people need more guidance here because
I mean,
yeah, like
I think it was like after my first 50K, it was like really hot. I think it was in Virginia or something. And I had some sort of recovery thing right afterwards. And then we just got like huge scoops of ice cream. And I was just like,
oh,
yes, this is it. This is what I want.
love that. Love that.
Multiple
Yeah.
scoops.
That's
So
great.
yeah,
Yeah, so that's plan yeah, just having a plan, prepare, like bring yourself multiple options too. There's maybe not one specific right way, but bring lots of options. You never want to be underfueled. And going back again like to where I was saying that I think where I used to go wrong was not giving myself permission to just stop and get a full complete
totally.
meal. But even with that, if it is for a race, like look, if you're traveling to go visit family, just go eat what you want. But you're traveling for a race, that's where you do kind of want to still have a plan. Like, where can I get pasta? Where can I get a sandwich? I don't want a greasy burger today. Greasy burgers for after the race. I don't want
Yeah.
it, the day before the race. So it does, and that's why planning, like, I think that's why planning all those snacks, and you were even saying like applesauce for carb loading, like all that stuff is good because you're still trying to stay on your carb load plan. So you would
Yep.
want to, this is specific for endurance travel. Like you really do want to have all those carbohydrates with you. Another tip that I'm sure you share while traveling too is like if they're staying in a hotel or really, well, anywhere, but like when you get there, if you're going to be there a couple days, like hit up the grocery store. That's like
Totally.
first thing to do.
They usually
You
have
don't,
like a microwave or a little mini fridge, a kettle.
yeah.
There are usually some things around that you can use to make some basic stuff.
Yeah. Actually, I was meeting with a young athlete who's a soccer player and has a big tournament weekend that they were flying to. And she's like, what do I pack? This and that. And I'm like, you only need to pack for like the day of travel because the morning you get there, you're going to go to the grocery store because it was like her and her whole family. And I'm like, you all have to go to the grocery store,
Yeah.
It's like, you don't need to pack a whole loaf of bread.
Yeah.
Get that, like have that be the first thing you do when you get there. And I used to travel a lot for work prior to my own private practice. I would
Mhm.
travel 1 to 2 weeks out of the month. And so it
Oh,
just
wow.
became a routine, like, I would bring the stuff with me to get through, like, the day of the flight and, like, a little extra just in
Mhm.
case you get delayed, this and that. But then that was just on my to-do list, like, I checked into the hotel and I went to the grocery store right away.
Yeah.
That became the
Yeah.
routine.
Yeah. And this is where honestly, like, you just need to figure out what works for you. Some people are totally digging like prepping all the stuff. And, like I
Mhm.
remember driving, like when I did Boston, I was living in New York at the time and we drove one time and I packed my rice and salmon and whatever else I was having for lunch to have in the car and all my
Yeah.
snacks. And, we stopped for little things here and there and maybe I grabbed a juice or a coffee or whatever it was, but like
Mhm.
that worked for me. And so but if that doesn't work for you, that's okay. As long as you have a plan and something works for you, that's what matters. And then again, like the context, like as you were saying, like if you can grocery shop, wonderful. Like
Yeah.
if you don't have a car, there's no grocery store and you don't have a kitchen,
You
like that
can't.
obviously doesn't make sense for you.
Right.
So again, so it's just figuring out like, okay, well, are there, grocery stores around? And then it also like what's your stomach like? Are you someone who has a sensitive stomach? Are you like
Or
one of those people who,
allergies,
yeah, or
like,
allergies?
yeah.
Or do you have any restrictions that we have to keep in mind that, maybe you want to bring extra things if you have, fewer options than other
Mhm.
people, or even those people that really can eat like pretty much anything and you're fine. So it's knowing your body and what you need and making plans accordingly. I will say that at the very start of my marathon, like after my first marathon, which was a total disaster nutrition wise, I kind of doubled down and like just went nuts about like I would be like one of those people that would just get in line for the bathroom and obsessively use the bathroom before the start of the race because I was so scared that I would like poop my pants or whatever. And look, it was fine. I never had like a GI issue like that again, but I was just like so paranoid about it. Like I
I can
remember
picture exactly what you would do.
I remember running
go to
the
the bathroom
Chicago.
and get right back in line.
No, literally, like I remember running the Chicago Marathon, which was my like I think my second BQ. Or I don't know what it was, but like I was like just by myself, just like waiting in line. It was freezing. I was just like sitting in the porta potty because it's so cold. But like I just was like so paranoid about it. But I would literally travel, and this is like, don't do this because this was like obsession control to the point of being unhealthy. I would travel with the brand of spaghetti that I had been practicing and training, where it's like, like you don't have to do that. Like that's
probably
like,
any spaghetti is good.
Any spaghetti will be okay. But I was like, no, I have to use this spaghetti, and that's like a little too far. That's like crossing the line. So you could take these things to the extreme, and that is definitely not what I'm recommending. So just thought I'd share that with things not to do that I have done before.
Yeah. Because, well, and honestly, to share this side of it too, that some people, like somebody with celiac disease, like they actually do have to travel with their specific brand of spaghetti because who knows if a restaurant's going to have gluten-free spaghetti for them or not, or that store, that location. And so so for some people, for the sake of your true internal health, you have to. And I want everybody else to like, to be grateful, honestly, that like, you don't have to do that. So don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
unless you're trying to make your life easier. Like I was doing, like you have to also question like, why are you doing something? Like I was doing it from a control standpoint. And a fear standpoint. I was so terrified of having GI issues during a race because I was so obsessed with getting a PR and that whole thing, right? So, but like if you're bringing a box of spaghetti because like I don't want to have to stop at the store and I just have this lying around the house, like that's a different scenario.
It's different, yeah.
So we have to understand like
you were doing that out of fear.
Exactly, out of fear and obsession, not just because like this is convenient.
Yeah, not out of convenience or because it's what I enjoy. Because
So as I always say, context is everything.
Absolutely. I had another thought when it comes to travel. Oh, just nowadays, like, for me personally in my day-to-day life, I don't tend to use like Grubhub or DoorDash. It just is not something I use in my life. But the times when I do use it is when I'm traveling. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a reminder for other people too. If you're in that situation where you're in a hotel, you're staying somewhere that you don't have access to a kitchen and you don't have a car and you don't want to walk and wander and I don't know how I'm going to get my food, like utilize the fact that you can download Grubhub or DoorDash or Uber Eats or all these other things and like you can get food delivered to you. But it's something that like I have to remind myself of that because I don't use it in my day-to-day. So I forget that that's an option.
Same. I like, even when, it's funny, I was in New York City for 15 years and I was like that odd person that almost never got takeout or delivery or whatever. I went out to eat all the time. I mean, not like tons, but a fair amount. But I don't know. It's just something about delivery. I was like, I'd rather just like go eat it there. I don't know. Maybe like like sushi would travel well, but certain things would travel well. And then now here in Santa Cruz, it's just like, we just cook for ourselves. It's like
that's what I do too. I'm in a residential area, so we just like don't use that.
Doesn't make sense.
I forget where I was recently. Oh, actually, well, this wasn't travel, but I was like at the hospital with my son and like starving because he's a baby, so I have to stay with him and then all this stuff. And somebody's like, order Grubhub. But there were other complications because of the hospital. But those are things I'm like, why don't I just didn't even think about delivery.
Honestly, that didn't even occur but that didn't occur to me just now, even in this conversation. So like, I totally am with you there.
Yes.
Good
because,
idea.
I think as people, as many athletes do, we take accountability for our nutrition. We cook our own food a lot and we forget about the option of delivery and making life easier.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay. So one final thing to kind of wrap up this travel nutrition conversation is just to bring this back or tie it into your 8 months traveling in South America, where totally different. You were being an athlete there, but where like, it sounds like some, water contamination and or food poisoning got to you a couple times.
All of the above.
So, I mean, maybe that's another thing to think about here is like even just, yeah, where are you traveling to? If it's international, maybe looking up some guides on like local food safety. I'm trying to think like, I feel like this was like probably in one of our nutrition dietetics classes, like 101 of like, yeah, just like buy bottled waters. And, like, what are the
Yeah.
tips there of how to avoid, yeah,
The
the street food?
was it
Yeah.
microbiology that was the class?
Yeah.
I don't know. All the
Yeah.
foodborne illness and this and that. Yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, here's the thing. Okay, so like we were talking specifically about travel for a race. If you're doing
Yes.
just travel for vacation or travel for work or whatever it is, like other forms of travel, that's a little bit of a different scenario. And again, it doesn't mean that you should not plan and you should not think about these things, but it's a little bit different. You do have more
Yeah.
flexibility and you don't have the performance pressure that we have, of course, with a race. I still encourage people always because, if you are an active person, many people love, myself included, to explore through running or whatever it is that you're doing,
Yeah.
cycling, etc. Maybe you're hitting up the hotel gym, like whatever it may be. So I always tell people, make sure you're keeping in mind what you plan to do exercise wise and you bring any appropriate geared sports nutrition with you. So again, don't assume that you can find things while you're out. Like yes, if you have access to a grocery store and you can pick up like a Gatorade or something, fine. But like if you have specific things you enjoy, like, so for me, I mentioned Hawaii. We go there every year for a week or so. And I usually don't do anything long, but it's funny because even me as a sports dietitian who knows better, as you were kind of saying, it's so hot and humid. And I think to myself, I'm just running 3 miles. Like, I'm fine. I don't need to bring water. This happens every year, the first run. And then I'm like, what was I think? It's like 6 in the
Yep.
morning. So I'm like, I'll be fine. I hydrated before. I'm like dying. I'm like, what was I thinking?
Right.
And I always bring my handheld. And so I'm like, I even brought it with me. So now I always write myself a note, bring the damn handheld, fill it
Yep.
with sports nutrition, like take a sports drink or an electrolyte
An
beverage.
electrolyte.
Oh yeah, whatever it may be, and take it.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
so again, thinking ahead, or if you know that you're going to do some big adventure, like we sometimes do this huge trail run from the top of Haleakala, which is 10,000 feet. So it's really cold and you go down into the crater and across and it's hot as hell in the middle.
Wow.
Everything's exposed. It's amazing. It's like otherworldly. And I
Yeah.
think it's usually like 11, 12 miles, but it takes a long time because, we're taking a million photos and we're taking our
Yeah.
time.
It's
The
an
terrain
adventure
is really
run.
tough. There's a lot of climbing at the end. But obviously, you need a hydration vest. You need to carry as much water as you possibly can. You need snacks. You need all the things. So thinking ahead there. And then, like, the last thing I'll say about travel and nutrition is, travel is such an amazing opportunity to really explore new delicious foods and cuisines and environments. So, I remember back when I was training for road races and living in London, like, I remember doing a 20-miler around Paris or I did like a long run in Berlin or in Stockholm. Like I would be like traveling for other things and
Mhm.
it would just be like such a cool way to see a city or a
Yeah.
place, right? So
Yeah.
really exploring. And then what nutrition does is it allows you to have fun and feel good, right? So
Yeah.
like we're all doing this for fun for the most
Mhm.
part, unless you're a professional athlete. Well, hopefully you still do it for fun, but it's your job.
Yeah.
But still, it's like nutrition is how we like it's fun. It allows you to do what you love to do.
Mhm.
And it's also a nice like time, like especially if you're on vacation, to embrace being more flexible, right? And you're in a different environment, a different routine, different schedule. So it's not about like you must seek out the same foods or this and that. It's more just like, hey, like let's tune into your body. Let's still eat consistently because especially if you're an athlete, you still need to meet your increased nutrition needs.
Mhm.
Maybe we're doing it in different ways, but just pay attention and also listen like what are you intrigued by? Like what do you want to try? Does it feel good? And just kind of like allowing yourself to explore those things. So I have clients who maybe it's a combination of trying new foods, but also relying on some things that they know are kind of safer and comforting and
Yeah.
feel good in their bodies because they know that if they eat too much of this other thing, they're just going to feel like crap and no one wants to feel like
Yeah.
crap on vacation. So just
No.
finding some balance with this stuff. Not that I love the word balance, but it's a little, a little bit of exploration and having fun with it. And then also making sure you're listening to your
Yeah.
body and seeking out the things that make you feel
Yeah.
good.
Well, and also with that balance, it's like if you are planning a little bit, if you do provide some of your own food, then it gives
Yep,
you the flexibility to then go out and enjoy and explore something different,
totally.
because you are taking care of kind of that internal health. I'm feeling pretty good, so I can, you know, have that flexibility to have fun with food there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this was fun, Claire. Let's close out this episode with some rapid fire questions. I told myself I was going to do these in the beginning of the podcast, and I forgot.
All
Because
good.
I always do them at the end, but I'm like, I want to do these in the beginning instead. And I literally, I wrote it down on my phone notes. On my phone notes, I said, ask questions in the beginning, and I forgot. So
It's all good. I feel like most people do rapid fire at the end anyways, right? I don't
I
know.
know, but I feel like it'd be better to and because what keeps happening is I've actually been forgetting to do them because I keep talking too much and my conversations are going too long.
I have my own version. I call them my quick bites questions. And when I'm talking with someone, we run long. I'm like, I'm going to skip these today.
So I've been talking too much.
All good.
My podcast episodes have been going very long. We're at the hour mark already of when we started. You and I
Totally fine.
chatting. So I'm like. Anyways, here's our rapid fire questions. If there's one food you could eat every single day for the rest of your life but never get sick of it, what would it be?
Oh, God. Bread.
Too easy and too delicious.
Or to be more specific, bagels. Bagels are really delish.
Especially coming from New York for so long.
Yes.
All right. What is your favorite sport to participate in?
Running.
Yeah. Would you say it's trail running right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or we can count beach running as a trail.
Yeah.
I love running on the beach. I live really close to the beach and
wow, props for you. That is so hard.
I live a hard life. What can I say?
What about as a spectator? What's your favorite sport to watch and cheer on?
Oh, good question. I will confess I'm not a big spectator. I mean, I'm probably still running. Running.
Yeah, you can still spectate it.
I will
awesome.
spectate running. Yes. I'm less of a track person, I will say, and more of a distance running spectator.
Yeah, cool. Okay, and since this is the Female Athlete Nutrition podcast, if there's a female athlete out there you want to give a shout out to that you think is inspiring, a role model for any reason, who would that be and why?
Oh, that's a tough question. Let's see. There's so many cool people out there. I'm a huge fan of Kara Goucher. I think that's probably maybe not the most exciting answer. I know she's been around for a long time, but I love what she's doing. Probably, I love Des and Kara, to be honest. I think Des is such just a model human, to be honest. But Kara, I think, it's kind of watching her whole journey, especially post professional life and kind of how she's as at least professional runner and moving into a different kind of part of her career. I think it's been really cool to watch. Yeah, so I think Des has just been. I just think she's such a cool person. I don't know, and she really lifts people up, and so I know I'm listening to people, but
you can list too. Let's lift up.
I've been a long fan
athletes.
of both of them. I know they have their own podcast too, but yeah, I think Des Linden is great, and I saw that she was at the Western States training camp, so I really loving her potential move into the trail and ultra scene, and really kind of curious to see all that.
Yeah. They're both just amazing in their professional careers as runners, but also just what they've done for the sport and the community, especially with how Kara's had to speak out against some
Salazar,
coaching and drug use and things like that. It's just her story is this was happening and nobody knew it until, wow, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And by the way, Des's doppelganger resides at the YMCA here at San Antonio with me. And I went up to this woman and I asked her, I said, do you know who Des Linden is? And she said, no. And I said, I hope you take this as a compliment. You look just like her.
That's
and
so funny.
I was like, and it was though, because this woman was she's at the gym and she's not even a runner. She was lifting weights, but she just really looked like her.
That's
and she was
so funny.
She was like, you think I look like a professional athlete? I was like, yes, you do.
Love that. I'm dying to get both of them on my show, but I haven't yet gotten there. But they're great.
You'll get them soon enough. Well, thank you so much for this conversation, Claire. I hope our listeners, again, we will list your links. They can pop over, their podcast listeners, pop over to your podcast if you're an endurance athlete to tune into more. You've got masterclasses, you've got group programming, one-on-one. So head to eatforendurance.com. And thank you so much, Claire.
Thank you so much for having me. This is really fun.
Thanks so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed that episode. Please help spread the message of empowering female athletes to be fierce, fit, and fueled by giving this podcast a 5-star review and leaving a comment. You can also help more female athletes by sending this episode to a friend. Head to lindseycortes.com for more resources, information, more episodes, ways to work together, downloadable guides, and ebooks. And if you're interested in becoming a guest on the show or have a guest suggestion, head to lindseycortes.com/podcast, and there's a form for you to fill out to get on the show. Hey, there's more resources on my YouTube channel, Female Athlete Nutrition, Instagram at female.athlete.nutrition, and private Facebook group, Female Athlete Nutrition. I think you get the point. I'm here to support female athletes by fueling better and becoming fierce, fit, and fueled. Most importantly, if you need help, reach out. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next show.